guys. This is Wednesday's assignment. I'm recording a little early so Ms. Kirkpatrick doesn't have your directions posted here, but it's the same as it was yesterday. You go into Google Classroom for your class period, you open classwork, and you go to March 17th through the 20th, because that is this week. Open that document, and yesterday on Tuesday you did Tuesday's work, so today we are looking at Wednesday, March 18th's work. You're going to go to your textbook on page 30, and that is where we are going to start today. So we're looking at sequence and time today, and the book tells us from fairy tales with their once upon a time beginnings and happily ever after endings to modern classics, many great stories feature chronological order. The events must follow a linear structure, that is, they take place one after the other. Just like our lives, we follow chronological order in our lives. When we tell a story about what happened today, we start at the beginning and we go in order to the end. That would be chronological order. Sometimes, however, a writer plays with time by interrupting the chronological order of events. He or she may suddenly focus on an event from the past or hint at future events. A writer may manipulate time for various reasons. For example, to give you a deeper sense of the characters in conflict or to keep you wondering what will happen next. Flashback and foreshadowing are the two common devices that writers use to introduce the past and future events. By recognizing these devices, you can follow a story more closely and learn how the author manipulates time to create mystery, tension, or surprise. So a flashback is an account of a conversation, episode, or event that happened before the beginning of a story or at an earlier point. Flashbacks are my favorite because I love to know why people do the things they do. Well, the flashback tells you the history in their lives, like it might flash back to when they were a child and why they behave the way they do because something happened to them when they were a child or several years before something happened. And so that's what a flashback is doing. If you notice the chart that is shown in your book, it shows you that you've got event 1, event 2, then there's a flashback that actually goes before all of those events, and then event 3. And we see this a lot in TV shows and movies even. We have a flashback to a different time, but books do it as well. And then in your little chart it says, what does it do? So the flashback is going to interrupt the main action and describe earlier events. It shows how the past led up to the present situation, sometimes creating mystery or surprises in the process, and it provides background information about a character or an event. And we can recognize it down here by looking for possible clue words and phrases such as that summer, as a young boy, or her earliest moments. And you can keep track of chronological order of events so that you will be aware of events that interrupt this order. Foreshadowing, on the other hand, is when a writer hints or gives clues in early scenes that suggest events that will occur later. So in event 1, maybe there's a clue of what will happen in event 4. And in event 3, there's a clue of what will happen in event 4. Just like in Of Mice and Men, when in chapter 1, George tells Lenny over and over that if he gets into trouble, he'll hide in the brush, and George will come for him if he gets into trouble. And that's repeated a lot, so we know it's kind of like a hint that something might happen later. And then there's foreshadowing that George is going to shoot Lenny in the head because they killed the dog in chapter 3, and that hints to what happens at the end. Sometimes we get foreshadowing multiple times for the same idea, or sometimes we get foreshadowing that happens for one event early. But when you know something's going to happen and you kind of guess and can predict accurately, it's because there was foreshadowing. So if you look in your textbook, it tells you what does it do. Foreshadowing prepares the readers for events that come later, often in the climax or the resolution, and it creates tension or suspense, and it makes the readers eager to keep reading. And then you can recognize it by paying attention to the repeated or emphasized ideas and descriptions, and notice when characters make important statements or behave in unusual ways. So those how can I recognize it? That's really going to help you as you go on to your practice stuff today and tomorrow. So then looking at page 31, this is a model looking at flashback. And remember, you answer your questions in your Google Doc here that go with this passage with sweet potato. So if we look at the questions, it says, explain what happens before the flashback. At what point does the flashback begin? Explain the words or phrases that help you identify it. Find 3 details that describe the narrator and Charlie's family. One of them has been boxed, so you're going to find 3 more. and explain what those details tell you about their childhood, and how does the flashback help you understand Charlie. So Sweet Potato is a short story by Eugenia Collier, and it tells us in this top part up here, it gives us some information. It says, moments after meeting the narrator in the story, you are transported to an earlier time in his life. As you read, notice what flashback reveals about the narrator and his family. So the passage, I'm going to start right here, says, from up here on the 14th floor, my brother Charlie looks like an insect scurrying among other insects. A deep feeling of love surges through me. Because I see Charlie so seldom, my thoughts hover over him like hummingbirds. The cheerful, impersonal tidiness of his room is a world away from Charlie's walk-up flat in Harlem, and hundreds of worlds from the bare, noisy shanty, where he and the rest of us spent what there was of childhood. I close my eyes, and side by side I see Charlie of my boyhood and the Charlie of this afternoon, as clearly as if I were looking at a split TV screen. Another surge of love, seasoned with gratitude, wells up in me. As far as I know, Charlie never had any childhood at all. The oldest children of sharecroppers never do. Mama and Papa were shadowy figures, whose voices I heard vaguely in the afternoon when sleep was shallow, and whom I glimpsed as they left for the field before I was fully awake, or as they trudged wearily into the house at night, when my lids were irresistibly heavy. They came into sharp focus only on special occasions. One such occasion was the day when the crops were in and the sharecroppers were paid. In our cabin there was so much excitement in the air that even I, the baby, responded to it. For weeks we had been running out of things that we could neither grow nor get on credit. On the evening of that day we waited anxiously for our parents' return. Then we would cluster around the rough wooden table, I on Lil's lap, or clinging on Charlie's neck, or to Charlie's neck, little Alberta nervously tugging her plate, Jamie crouched at Mama's elbow like a panther about to spring, and all 7 of us, silent for once, waiting. Papa would place the money on the table gently, for it was made from the sweat of their bodies and from their children's tears. Mama would count it into little piles, her dark face stern, and I think now, beautiful, not with the hollow beauty of well-modeled features, but with the strong radiance of one who has suffered and never yielded. This for store bill, she would mutter, making a little pile. This for collection. This for piece of gingham. And so on, stretching the money as tight over our collective needs as Jamie's outgrown pants were stretched over my bottom. Well, that's the crop. She would look up at Pa at last. It'll do. Pa's face would relax, and a general grin flitted from child to child. We would survive, at least for the present. So you're going to go back in and answer these 4 questions in your Google Doc. So explain what happens before the flashback. So obviously the flashback is most of the story. So look towards the beginning for where you're going to find what happens before the flashback. At what point, number 2, does the flashback begin? Explain what words or phrases help you identify it. So maybe note what line or paragraph you think the flashback begins, and then also explain what were the words and phrases that helped you know it started. Number 3, find 3 details that describe the narrator and Charlie's family, because they're siblings, if you haven't caught on to that. Their siblings and their parents were sharecroppers, meaning they worked a share of a farm, and there's a lot of poverty there. So think about what details they give you about their childhood. One of them is boxed here. Charlie never had any childhood at all. The oldest children of sharecroppers never do. But there's a lot of other details in there. And then lastly, how does the flashback help you understand the narrator's feelings about Charlie? So you're going to think about what they describe in here. How does it help you understand how the person talking feels about the character Charlie? Have a great day, guys. Thanks.